One of the games that we'll almost certainly be seeing at some point during Summer Games Fest is Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake. And there actually isn't a ton of information that has been released officially for it yet, so this would probably be the time to do that. More recently, they finally announced the release date for it, which is October 30th, 2025, so only a few months away, sometime in the fall. But they haven't shown a ton of footage for it. Basically, everything that I'm looping in this video is the extent of what we've seen. And speaking of barely being given any information, Dragon Quest XII, there's even less, but we'll go over that a bit later in the video. There is some information about Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake, and we know that some people have had hands-on previews of it already, but they're only allowed to talk a little bit about it, it seems like. Apparently, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake really is a reimagining of the first two games, and it does substantially more than just overhaul the graphics. They've actually given much more story reasons for everything that happens, for example. For those that remember playing the first Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, in the US, there was the bare minimum of story to know what is going on. It was much more about grinding in each zone, getting the levels and equipment that you need to progress, and then moving on to the next region. So, that being said, getting additional story and context is pretty huge. They're also adding new content to the game as well, even going as far as to add a new female character to Dragon Quest II. That is something that someone mentioned. And I think that Summer Game Fest would be the perfect venue to show some of these changes off. It isn't overly stacked with announcements like you would get at the Game Awards, so I think it slots in nicely, especially with the release date in October. I'd expect to see more footage of what the game actually looks like, and it's only about a week away, so that's happening very soon. Now, as for Dragon Quest XII, it's much more difficult to say when we will be seeing anything for it. There has been no official announcement on the release date or even the release year, so all we really have right now is a teaser, and we do know a little bit about how the game will play out because Yuji Horii was talking about it. Apparently, it's going to be much different than previous Dragon Quest games of the past, which makes the secrecy and the time that it's taking make a lot more sense. They envision a much darker story being told in Dragon Quest XII, with actual choices that you get to make as the character, and not the but thou must kind. Yuji Horii has been drip-feeding this information over the past few years. He has said that he is excited for the next phase of Dragon Quest. We should also keep in mind that the deaths of Akira Toriyama and Koichi Sugiyama have certainly affected the development of the game. Toriyama's style has always been a huge boon for Dragon Quest, and it echoes through each game, so whoever is attempting to fill those boots will have a lot to do. Yuji Horii also said that Dragon Quest XII will likely be compatible with the Switch 2, so those that have purchased that console will be able to play, most likely. I would also expect it to be available on all other major consoles, PlayStation, Xbox, and on Steam. He also said that the combat system will be notably different than previous Dragon Quest games, a big step considering that it has been pretty rare that the combat system ever sees a large change. Probably the biggest change was in Dragon Quest XI, with the ability to speed up combat, and also being able to see the field in third person. We also know that Dragon Quest XII will be on Unreal Engine 5, so that opens an entirely different can of worms. Does that mean we'll be getting a more realistic style with some stylistic choices reminiscent of Dragon Quest games in the past? Or do they only slightly change the graphical style to make it a little bit more dark? It's kind of hard to say. It sounds like they'll be pushing more towards realism a little bit if they're planning on making this more adult and a mature game, which I'm honestly pretty excited to see. As much as I love Dragon Quest style, it'll be fun to see what happens when they go a bit wild with it and allow a more mature story. If there's anything about Dragon Quest XII at Summer Game Fest, I'm not sure if it will be anything super substantial, but it's a wild card that Square Enix can kind of choose to play at any time. They could do a full reveal at Summer Games Fest. They could continue to stay quiet about it for another year. Anything in between that. There really is no timeline that makes sense for Dragon Quest XII anymore. because they've now gone longer without a mainline single-player title in the series than they've ever gone before. Remember, the original release of Dragon Quest XI was 2017, and there was an 8-year gap between that and Dragon Quest IX, which was the last single-player version of the series. There was Dragon Quest X in between that, the MMORPG, so it makes more sense for there to be a gap in between those games. This time, there is no reason for the gap other than a potential troubled development, so I'm hopeful that we'll see something at one of these shows, but I'm not holding my breath. We could not see anything about Dragon Quest XII for quite a long time. So that's really most of what we know about the future Dragon Quest games. To learn more about JRPGs, RPGs, and other story-based games, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.